It started like a whisper in the dark, one voice breaking the silence of hip hop's inner circle. Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard, is now pointing the finger at one of the most powerful names in music. His claim? Jay-Z was never Diddy's friend, not for a single day. Behind the handshakes, the champagne toasts, and the flashing cameras was something colder, a rivalry so calculated it may have ended with Diddy in handcuffs. According to Gene, the betrayal wasn't just personal, it was strategic. Jay-Z allegedly played both sides, smiling in public while quietly feeding the feds behind the scenes. And if that's true, then we have to ask, was Diddy's downfall really his own doing, or the final step in a master plan years in the making? When Gene Deal speaks, the industry listens, even if it doesn't want to. For years, he's been the guy with stories too raw for the glossy headlines, but too detailed to dismiss. And his latest revelation? That Jay-Z was never really standing beside Diddy, but instead standing over him, watching, waiting, and quietly pulling strings. According to Gene, the bond between the two moguls was never friendship, it was theater. The smiles on red carpets, the champagne bottles raised in VIP booths, the casual arm slaps backstage, all carefully staged performances for cameras and fans. Behind closed doors, however, the relationship was much more like a chess game. Jay-Z, the strategist, calm and methodical, while Diddy thrived on noise, spectacle, and the belief that his empire was untouchable. But Gene suggests the stakes were far higher than bruised egos. He claims Jay-Z may have been feeding information directly to federal agents, turning Diddy's missteps into leverage. Think about that. If the allegations are true, every party, every business deal, every whispered conversation could have been quietly weaponized against Diddy without him even realizing it. What looked like partnership might have been surveillance, what looked like support might have been betrayal. And the way Gene tells it, this wasn't some last minute switch up. It was a long game, years of patience, collecting receipts, letting Diddy dig deeper into chaos while Jay-Z stayed spotless. Then, when the timing was right, the trap snapped shut, and suddenly Diddy's world came crashing down while Jay's empire only grew stronger. It's a chilling claim, because if Gene is right, Diddy's downfall wasn't an accident of excess. It was a plan executed with precision, but that wasn't the only bombshell Gene dropped. The deeper you look into this story, the darker it gets. Because Gene's claims about betrayal don't stand alone. They connect to whispers that have been floating around the industry for years. Rumors of Jay-Z's so-called shadow ops circle, a private network of fixers, insiders, and enforcers who allegedly specialized in digging up dirt, silencing threats, and keeping Jay's name cleaner than polished glass. To most, it sounds like hip-hop folklore, the kind of myth that grows when someone becomes untouchable. But when you line up the stories, a pattern starts to emerge. Insiders describe a machine working quietly behind the scenes, problems disappearing overnight, scandals fizzling before they could ignite, rivals suddenly finding themselves boxed out of opportunities with no clear reason why. And yet Jay himself always remained calm, unshaken, never caught in the flames. Here's the chilling part. Some believe this shadow ops network didn't just protect Jay-Z, it cleared his path. Industry voices have hinted that the silence surrounding Diddy's most dangerous controversies wasn't coincidence at all. That maybe, just maybe, it was engineered. The timing of events, the way stories about Diddy would spiral while Jay's name floated untouched. It's hard not to wonder if the game was being rigged all along. And if this circle really existed, we have to ask, how far did they go? Was it just whispers and reputation management? Or something darker? Were they simply running interference? Or were they laying the groundwork for Diddy's ultimate downfall? Because if Jay-Z had a private team making sure his hands stayed clean, then Diddy wasn't just up against a rival. He was up against an invisible system designed to protect one man's throne at any cost. But that's only the beginning of the puzzle, because the real turning point might trace back to one woman whose name keeps resurfacing: Kathy White. Whenever people start piecing together Jay-Z and Diddy's tangled history, one name keeps echoing: Kathy White. She wasn't just a publicist or another face in the nightlife crowd. She was someone with access, someone who floated in and out of those circles where secrets weren't just shared, they were currency. And according to reports, Kathy may have known too much. The story begins quietly enough. Kathy was seen at events, dinners, and even late-night gatherings with both Jay-Z and Diddy. To the outside world, she was just another industry insider. But then whispers started circulating, whispers that she wasn't content to stay in the shadows. Some claimed Kathy was preparing to go public with what she knew, possibly explosive details that could have shaken the foundations of both men's empires. Insiders point to one night in particular, a low-key evening at Tao in Los Angeles, where Kathy, Jay-Z, and Diddy were spotted together alongside Claudia Jordan. It seemed like just another outing, but later, industry chatter painted it as the spark that set everything in motion. Kathy allegedly told a major tabloid she had a story, something involving Jay-Z, and hinted at a tell-all that could command a massive payout. Then came the timing that still raises eyebrows. Less than 48 hours after reportedly reaching out to Jay directly, Kathy was gone. No warning, no build-up, just a sudden end explained away as an aneurysm. Official paperwork marked it down as a tragedy, but key details vanished. Toxicology reports never surfaced, the autopsy was buried in silence, and the entire story disappeared from mainstream coverage almost instantly. To this day, her passing feels less like an accident and more like a locked door, a door to secrets that never saw daylight. But Kathy wasn't the only one tied into this web of silence. Another woman, one even closer to Diddy, would soon raise questions of her own. If Kathy White's story left people unsettled, the passing of Kim Porter left the entire industry rattled. Kim wasn't just another figure in Diddy's orbit. She was the mother of his children, a woman who knew him better than most, and someone with decades of history inside his inner circle. That's what made the circumstances surrounding her end so alarming. Reports said Kim was found unresponsive in her home in 2018, just days after telling close friends she wasn't feeling well. The official explanation pointed to pneumonia, a tragedy that can strike suddenly, but almost immediately questions started bubbling. Friends said she'd been healthy. Family members hinted that she'd recently spoken about wanting to tell her truth. And then came the claims from singer Jaguar Wright, who didn't mince words. She said flat out that Kim's passing didn't feel natural. Jaguar didn't stop there. She also drew a chilling comparison, saying that while people suspected Diddy, Jay-Z was far more dangerous. Smarter, in her words. That comment stuck because it painted Jay not as a man who gets messy, but as one who stays clean by pulling strings quietly from the background. If Diddy's chaos brought attention, Jay's control kept him untouchable. Kim's death, like Kathy's, followed a pattern: sudden, unexplained, and followed by silence. Toxicology details remained scarce, investigations wrapped quickly, and the mainstream media moved on almost overnight. But within industry circles, the whispers grew louder. Some believed Kim was preparing to reveal information about Diddy's alleged parties. Others claimed her knowledge extended to Jay-Z and the power games he played with allies and rivals alike. Whether coincidence or calculation, both women had ties to Diddy and connections to Jay-Z. Both reportedly had stories to tell, and both never got the chance. If Diddy built his empire on noise, Jay-Z perfected the art of silence. The contrast between the two is striking. While Diddy was front and center, throwing extravagant parties and basking in chaos, Jay always seemed calm, measured, and one step ahead, and that's exactly what makes the allegations from Gene Deal so chilling. See, Jay doesn't need to be in the room when things go south, he doesn't need to get his hands dirty. What people in the industry whisper is that Jay moves like a strategist, delegating the messy work, keeping his own record spotless, and letting others carry the weight of scandal. It's not about being lucky, it's about being calculated. When we look back, the pattern is hard to ignore. From the Lance Rivera nightclub stabbing that barely left a scratch on his career, to that quiet weapons charge in the early 2000s that vanished without headlines, Jay-Z has walked away from controversies that would have destroyed almost anyone else. Every time the narrative around him is polished, controlled, and carefully curated, and that's where the rumors of his so-called shadow ops come in. Industry insiders claim Jay surrounds himself with a private circle, fixers, strategists, and enforcers who make inconvenient problems disappear before they ever hit the front page. Maybe it's folklore, maybe not, but people close to the business swear it's the reason Jay always comes out untouched while those around him fall apart. So, if Gene's claim is true, that Jay leaked information about Diddy to the feds, it wouldn't be a reckless gamble. It would fit perfectly into the long game Jay has always played, staying spotless in public while controlling the narrative in the shadows. But was that strategy just survival or the ultimate power play? When Kathy White's name comes up, it isn't just Jay-Z's shadow that lingers, it's Beyoncé's too. Because the timing of Kathy's sudden passing lines up with one of the biggest moments of Beyoncé's career, that unforgettable baby bump reveal at the VMAs. On the surface, it was a moment of joy that dominated headlines, but beneath the glittering stage lights, insiders whispered it was also the perfect distraction. Think about it. Kathy had reportedly been in contact with a tabloid, preparing to go public with what she knew about Jay-Z and Diddy. She even made a direct call to Jay, suggesting she was ready to speak out. Within days, she was gone, and Beyoncé's pregnancy announcement swallowed the news cycle whole. Coincidence? Some say yes. Others say it was a masterclass in timing. And Beyoncé herself isn't exempt from speculation. Some industry voices describe her as more than just the quiet superstar. They call her the enforcer, the one who understands that silence is power and nothing leaves the fortress without her approval. One veteran insider even claimed she knows everything. Nothing gets out unless she allows it. Add to this the long-standing rumor that Beyoncé's pregnancy may not have been as it seemed, that a surrogate had been arranged to protect her image, and suddenly the narrative feels less like fate and more like strategy. If Kathy's story had broken at that exact time, it could have been a PR disaster. Instead, the headlines were filled with glowing photos of Beyoncé smiling in that iconic gown. So the question becomes, was Beyoncé simply caught in the storm, or was she one of the storm's architects, ensuring the brand stayed untouchable? If the stories so far feel like a tangled web, step back and the pattern begins to look almost deliberate, like moves on a chessboard that stretch far beyond music, fame, or even money. Whispers about secret societies, elite networks, and the so-called Illuminati have followed Jay-Z for years. Critics claim the symbolism in his videos, lyrics, and public appearances isn't just artistry, it's a signal to those in the know, a subtle assertion of influence over more than just the entertainment industry. Combine that with the tales from Gene Deal, the shadow ops rumors, and the unexplained deaths of insiders like Kathy White and Kim Porter, and a bigger picture emerges. Diddy, once untouchable, suddenly looks like a pawn in a game he didn't even know he was playing. Jay-Z, on the other hand, appears untouchable, his moves carefully calculated, his public persona pristine. Industry insiders have suggested this isn't just about wealth, it's about controlling power streams that touch tech, fashion, politics, and global influence. The theory goes further. Every crisis, every sudden disappearance, every distraction, from Beyonce's pregnancy reveal to the quiet fading of certain controversies, was part of a long term playbook. Diddy's fall, the silencing of potential whistleblowers, and Jay's clean public image weren't random. They were outcomes of a system designed to consolidate control while keeping the architects invisible. It's a narrative that terrifies and fascinates because it implies a level of strategy rarely discussed outside of boardrooms or secret councils. If true, it reframes the history of hip hop not as a series of rivalries and missteps, but as a microcosm of a much larger power game, one where perception is managed, moves are premeditated, and only a select few truly pull the strings. In this world, friendship is a facade, loyalty is negotiable, and silence is currency. The question remains, how many more moves in this game are hidden from the public eye? How many more secrets lie buried, waiting for the right player to reveal them? Looking back at the threads of this story, one thing becomes clear. What we saw as friendship, loyalty, or rivalry may have been something else entirely. A carefully orchestrated strategy. From Gene Deal's revelations to the mysterious deaths of Kathy White and Kim Porter, from the whispers of shadow ops to Beyonce's perfectly timed public appearances, the narrative suggests a game being played on a scale most of us can barely imagine. Jay-Z emerges as more than just a rapper or mogul. In this account, he is the quiet strategist, moving pieces, managing perceptions, and letting chaos unfold around him while he remains untouched. Diddy, once a king in his own right, may have been blinded by spectacle, unaware that the game he thought he was playing was already decided. And the women caught in this web, Kathy, Kim, and even Beyonce, are reminders that power often hides in plain sight, wielded subtly and decisively. The bigger picture hints at systems of influence that extend far beyond music, politics, fashion, media, and global networks of control. Allegiances are temporary, silence is currency, and the public sees only what the players allow. Every scandal, every disappearance, every headline may be a move on a board most of us will never fully understand. So the question lingers, was any of this ever about friendship, or has it always been about power? How many secrets remain buried beneath the glitz, the cameras, and the carefully curated personas? And most importantly, who is truly pulling the strings while the rest of us watch from the sidelines? One thing is certain, if Gene Deal's claims hold even a fraction of truth, the story of Jay-Z, Diddy, and those caught in between is far darker, more calculated, and more chilling than most would ever imagine.